In this video, we'll be talking about the new features that are available in OptimumCNC's latest version, version number 2.0.3422. Here, these new features are available in the CAD module, and they relate to editing specific lines, segments, or arcs that you have already designed. So for instance, we would like to design something, very simple maybe, a little square that is 3 by 3 inches. Now let's imagine that we'd like to make this bigger. Perhaps if we'd like to make it 6 by 6, there's no problem. We can simply scale it by a factor of 2. But now, what if we want to make this into a 6 by 3 square, or rectangle? Now that becomes a little bit more difficult. We can play around with our lines, maybe we'll lengthen them, but in general, we are going to perhaps simply scrap this and redesign the whole part. Now, with a square or a rectangle, that's simple enough, but perhaps you have already spent a lot of time designing a more intricate part, and you don't want to simply scrap it because you made one wrong measurement. Now, on the latest version, what we're going to do is we're simply going to click on a line that we'd like to edit. That can be a line or an arc. And we're going to see that we have a new window right here called CAD segment properties. That contains the position for X and Y, the offset values, the length of the currently selected line or arc, its bulge, so here it's a straight line, so that value is 0, and the angle at which this line is positioned. So here it's a straight line, so it will be 0 or 180. Let's say we'd like to make this a little taller. So here we're going to edit an offset, and we're going to enter 3. Press enter, and now we can see that our square has become a rectangle that should be 6 by 3 inches. Now, how do we confirm that this new rectangle is indeed 6 by 3 inches? One way would be to, of course, use the guidelines on the sides here that are always available. But another new way would be to use the ruler that we have added on this latest version into the CAD module. So here, click on the ruler in the bottom left tab, click on our starting point, and drag to our end point. So here we can see that our length is indeed 6 inches and 3 inches for this line right here. Let's try and design something a little bit more complicated. Perhaps now we'd like to design a pentagon. Now, of course, we can simply try and approximate what a pentagon is going to look like here, but that will likely not be very precise, and we might spend a lot of time playing around with this. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to make a circle, first of all, perhaps with a radius of 3. We're going to subdivide it into 5 segments. So now we have 5 arcs that constitute the circle. And we're going to edit those arcs by once again clicking on them, selecting them, and seeing the CAD segment properties window pop up. Here we're going to keep the position. We're not going to change the offset or the length of these lines, and instead we're going to simply edit this bulge value. So here it's 0.325, meaning that it is curved. We can set this to 0, 0, 0, 0, and 0. And now, at the end of it, we're going to have a pentagon. Next, let's say we have created this pentagon, but we would like one of the points on this pentagon to actually be higher, up here. Of course, we could simply redraw it from the ground up, like this perhaps, but again, that takes a little too long and is not very precise. Instead, what we're going to do is select one of our segments, and then we're going to select this point that belongs to that segment. And here, once we click on this point, we'll see that we have a new window called CAD Vertex Properties. This is the properties window for this particular selected point that is highlighted in yellow and red. We can see that this point has a position, and we can also enter an offset for X and Y. So for instance, let's say we want to move it a little bit higher. We're going to enter an offset of 2 for the Y-axis. Now let's say we would like to edit one of these lines to have a different angle. Perhaps we know that we need to have an angle of negative 15 degrees. Now we have a line that is at negative 15 degrees, has a certain length that we can also edit, has a certain bulge that we can also edit, perhaps negative 0.1, and so on and so forth. So now we have a much more complicated geometry that we can play around with. Now that we have finished with this file, we're ready to go. We can once again import it into our CAM module, which also has the new ruler feature, so we can check whether our lines are the correct length. And then once we are done here, we can click the green check mark in the top right corner to bring this onto the main screen of the Optimum software. Once again, this update is now available, and you can test it by going into the top right corner, clicking on the Optimum Control Systems logo, and then running the software update to bring you up to version 2.0.3422. Thank you for watching.